Whipple's seen everything, and he knows what's going to work best with what everybody else is doing, especially in the Big Ten. I think he's seen it at Pitt. He's seen what some of those teams in the ACC like to play, that physical football.
His Pitt team played like a Big Ten team last season. I don't know about previous years, but last season. So that they didn't have a good offensive line, by the way. The offensive line was terrible. Constant pressures. And they were still pretty effective offensively, but their defense was really good. They would have beaten Michigan State easily if they had Pickett. They had a really good team. It was the Big Ten-like team. So I think he'll be all right. And their weather is terrible. I've been to Pittsburgh.
There's a lot of wind in Pittsburgh.
Jesus Christ.
I tell you what, one of the worst driving experiences I've ever had as a truck driver, Gio, was Pittsburgh. Was about about a year and a half ago. I was coming down, of all places, from Michigan, because it was going into 4th of July weekend last year, as a matter of fact. So it was less than a year ago. And I had just delivered a center pivot or something up in Michigan. They were sending me to this place to pick up a steel coil that was going to go back to Valley, Nebraska, so I could go home for the weekend. Well, they didn't know that the place was closing on Thursday night, and they weren't going to be open on Friday for me to reload. So they were like scrambling, and they found me a place to reload on a Saturday in Pittsburgh, right by the river. In this place, I called them. They're like, yeah, if you come down this way and come through here and that way, you can park right in our lot overnight, and we'll load you in the morning. Holy cow. By the time I got down there, I had about 45 minutes left on my day that I could legally drive, and I couldn't freaking find this place. It was dark. It was literally right next to the river. You had to find this access road and take this really funky way to get to this access road. I finally said, screw it. And I put a rest area into my GPS, closest rest area, and I drove like 20 minutes out of town. And by the time I pulled my brake and put myself into off-duty or sleeper mode on my E-log, I had literally 2 minutes left on my 14-hour day before I'd have been in violation. So, yeah, Pittsburgh sucks. And the weather's no damn fun. I had to tarp that thing indoors because it was too windy coming off the river. So, yeah.
I mean, it's a nice-looking city, but it's just their weather's terrible.
Oh, it's a crap hole. If you ever go downtown, dude, you don't want to be downtown anytime after the sun's down. It's an absolute crap hole. This place was like a mile and a half from downtown. So it's a pretty area once you get out of Pittsburgh proper. It is really pretty, but anyway.
Yeah, I've been to this couple Steelers games. I applied to Pittsburgh a long time ago. It's a good school. Yeah, it's a good school. But I ended up choosing Michigan. But
Michigan, that was for the medical program, right? For the pharmaceutical? Is that why you went there?
I actually went there for undergrad.
Okay.
For undergrad, yeah. But Pitt's got a good medical. They're good at sciences. It's a good school.
Cool.
But
cool deal.
Yeah, I started defensive line. Are there any other question marks for the team at this point? Assuming Keeper will be taken care of, I hope.
We just came off of a 3-9 season. I think the entire 2022 season is going to be a question mark until we hit the field in Dublin. Then we'll kind of have an idea of what's going on. But this is talking season. Wide receiver, I guess. I mean, we know we've got a lot of dudes, but who do you think those first three are that are going to run out as starters? What do you think?
God, I was hoping Betts.
Yeah, me too.
So without him, it's tough. Palmer, looks like they're keying on him, but we'll see. I was going to ask about a couple other guys, actually.
I think you're probably going to see Palmer. Alante Brown's been talked about a lot. I think Brown's going to start probably outside. I don't remember if Palmer's going to play the slot or if he's going to play outside, but I think it's probably going to be Manning, Palmer,
you have to
and Brown.
assume Manning.
Yep. Manning's been moved back outside since Betts left because they were playing him inside too. And Mickey Joseph has challenged his wide receivers to catch 10,000 passes between now and the start of fall camp with the quarterbacks. So
yeah,
it's going to be a lot of sore hands.
Manning and Alante Brown, but we'll see if Manning flourishes in this offense because last season he just had too many games where he just didn't do enough. He just was non-existent. Had a catch or two, just didn't do enough. As for all the hype, just didn't. He was fine, but he didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
He didn't make an impact like Toure, that's for sure. So,
well, with a guy like Mickey in the wide receiver room holding dudes to a way different standard than they've ever been held to before, and it seems like he's flourishing because he was quiet. You'd never hear shit from Shiola, from Omar at all. He'd never talked, but now he's talking to the media. He seems to have gotten a little bit of some personality going to him. I think Mickey's bringing things out of dudes that they haven't had before. I think, you know what? Maybe Oliver Martin's one of those starters because he's one of those guys that's really responded well to Mickey, and he's fast. He's probably every bit as fast as Trey Palmer. So how cool would that be? Palmer on one side, Martin on the other, and somebody like Omar Manning in the slot or Alante Brown. Who the hell do you double team, right?
Garcia Castaneda, he hasn't arrived yet, but he should be able to make an impact at least in the short routes. Possession type of receiver.
So I'm going to do this. I just got a message. I'd sent a message on Twitter to the Cuzcast, to their Cuzcast account, and I know Justin is the one that runs it. I said, hey, going to send you guys an invite to StreamYard. Jump in if you want. We're just going to hang out, talk Husker stuff or whatever. He just responded, I just got this message and I'm way too drunk now. Imagine that. Justin, too drunk to get on a stream. Since when has that ever stopped him, right? You ever heard their show? He's usually half tanked once it starts. So,
we haven't seen Garcia Castaneda. I believe he's arriving this fall or later in the summer. But
I think he's already here. He's just been hurt.
Okay. I think he'll be effective in the slot. I think he'll be effective just short routes, just possession, just moving the chains, first downs, short first downs.
He reminds me a lot of Jordan Westerkamp, body type, speed, hands. If you watch some of his highlights, he reminds me a lot of Jordan Westerkamp, a possession type receiver who's going to get you that 3rd and 8 catch that you need over the middle.
Right. That's what I think he'll help a lot. I'm not sure about Manning in the slot, though. I would have to have seen more from him last season to put him in the slot. I keep him on the outside until he can show more. He just went missing too many games, way too many games. So I just didn't see the separation enough week to week. I wouldn't put him in the slot, not right now. I think they have better options there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
you can't have 1 or 2 catches in multiple games. Like, it just didn't do enough. So
yeah, I mean, Mickey says he wants to find 9 guys that he can run out there at any given time in any given game and know that they're going to get the job done. And if I were to pick those top 9 right now, I would say, Brown, Palmer. I was hoping Betts as well. But obviously we still don't know, quote unquote, his fate yet. I mean, apparently the door is still somewhat open. But anyway, Alante Brown, Trey Palmer, Omar Manning, Oliver Martin, Garcia Castaneda, when he's healthy, should be available. I think Lewer's good for a 3rd down catch or 2 every game when you really need it. Latrell Neville, I thought he looked the part. That's a big dude too. 6'2", 6'3", 205, 210. Physical kid. It's not afraid to go up and get the ball. Who else? Brody Belt, I guess. They've been talking about him a lot too. And, so that's 8, at least that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe a Sean Hardy wakes up and pulls his head out. I don't know. But I doubt we're going to go into the fall season with 15 dudes sitting on the roster with scholarships. I really don't. I don't think there's any way we do. I think we go in with maybe 11 guys that have scholars that are in the wide receiver room.
Right. I think they have more intermediate threats than deep threats, though. But I was going to ask, what do you think about Ernest Hausman? Would you redshirt him? He looked good.
Yeah, his name was mentioned a lot during the spring game, for sure. He did look good, looked speedy. Looked like he recognized plays very quickly.
Right.
Granted, again, you got to balance that with the idea that the offense was extremely vanilla. The defense generally knew what they were probably going to do. They really didn't have to guess too much because there wasn't a whole lot of the playbook that was open. But when it came to getting in and filling and making sure that he could make the touch if he needed to or the tackle, he was there. Would you redshirt him? Good
No.
God, do we have?
He was one of my top players from the class. I think I had him 2. He looked like he had in his high school film. Like the speed translated as far as this level.
Yeah.
He looks like he can play. He can play right now. He can contribute now. Whether they want to use him on special teams at times or just depth. He looks like he'll play at an accelerated pace.
Here's what I would say is likely happens with Houseman. I think maybe he probably makes the travel roster to go to Dublin, right? I think he makes that roster. He gets to go, whether he plays at all or not. I think they're going to probably play him if we get out to big leads against, South Dakota and Georgia Southern or whoever it is, the 2 patsies that we play after we play Northwestern. I think we get out to big leads with those. He's going to play in those 2 games, and then they're going to get a good idea of whether or not he can play in just 4 or if they'll just not bother redshirting him and let him play. That's kind of what I think will happen. But I agree with you. It looks like he can play. He's definitely the speed translated. No doubt about it.
Just the aggression.
I think he needs another 10 pounds, right. 10, 15 pounds to play as a starting inside linebacker in the Big Ten. But he's got the frame. He has the frame. He could probably put on 20 or 30 and move out to outside. Or maybe he's got the athleticism to play that JoJo role in a couple years.
Right.
Now, there you go. We're talking speed. And he's got that play recognition. I mean, yeah, out of everybody in the 2022 class that came out of Nebraska, I thought Houseman was the clear-cut my favorite guy. I think he's going to be a captain before it's all said and done. I think he's going to be the heart and soul of that defense in probably 2 to 3 years, in my mind. So, regardless of who's here as coach, God, I hope we don't go through that crap again. But
right.
Yeah, Houseman looked good. I thought everybody at that linebacker spot looked good. Obviously, we don't really need to say much about Nelson and Tanner. Both of those guys looked really, really quick, twitchy, if you will, off the ball. Nelson's even bigger, but it looks like he's quicker. And he looked a little more disciplined. He didn't look like he was overrunning any plays at all. Man, he's got that Wistrom attitude. I sure hope he gets that Wistrom ability. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm excited. The biggest question, we always come back to it, right, Gio? It's that defensive line. That's where it's all going to start when it comes to this defense. I think we got plenty of dudes around that line that can make plays. Do we have enough guys up front that can hold up throughout the entirety of a Big Ten season and do just enough to clear the path for the linebackers to make play after play on the running backs, especially when we get to Wisconsin and Iowa week? That's when we need those big hole fillers.
Right.
You need 2 or 3 Ty Robinsons that can rotate in and out of the game and know that you're going to get the same performance from all of them. So hopefully they find those dudes in the portal. It's going to be hard to find now. Well, maybe not, though.
There's plenty
Everybody's
of players.
shedding dudes in spring.
A lot of players are opting out, so to speak, after their spring game. So there's definitely options.
Sure.
I guess players use the spring game now to just have some extra film. They just hit the transfer portal. It's like a post-spring ball transfer season. It's pretty crazy. But it's ending. It's May 1st, though. The deadline's May 1st, though. So I'm sure they'll add a few. We'll see if they're Big Ten caliber, but at this point, they just need bodies, just big bodies to stop the run. Not much of a pass rush, just run stuffers. Do you think they'll? So in the last episode, the one I was a part of, I should say, you guys said they were hinting at running a 4-3 instead of a 3-4 with 2 defensive tackles. Do you think they'll continue with that now that they're short defensive linemen?
Well, the The 3-4 is really difficult to run if you don't have at least two dudes that can play that nose tackle position that are just that big 310, 320-pound range and are extremely athletic and can eat up blocks. I think you've got one in Ty Robinson. You know you've got one in that guy. Behind him, I don't know. I think maybe you can disguise a little bit more of your shortcomings as a defense by moving into more of the even front, because then you can put a guy like Hutmacher next to Robinson as a defensive tackle. And I think those two guys would be dynamic next to each other if, as Dawson said, Hutmacher can get that brute strength and actually use it to move dudes across from him. And then, Tanner and Nelson on either side, or O'Shawn Mathis if he gets here. That's the really big question. So who doesn't show up on the field as a starter when Mathis shows up in camp, or does Mathis just come in as a third down specialist? I mean, that's another piece of the pie that poor Dawson and Schnander have to work out. But if there's anybody I'm confident in that can take and adapt a defense to his personnel, it's Schnander. He did it as well as anybody did last year. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. And his defense has only done nothing but improve the 4 years he's been here. So I'm confident he can find pieces and make them work. But I have a feeling with Casey Rogers gone, with Tate Wildeman gone, you're probably going to see a lot more even front. Even though it'll look like a 3-4, probably have three dudes with their hand in the dirt and one guy standing up, but it's more or less going to be a 4-3, I think. How about you? What do you think?
I think 3-4 hasn't worked, in my opinion. Not that it can't work. I believe Wisconsin runs one effectively, but it just hasn't worked. They always just seem like they're relying on excess linebackers. The pressure is always a little. Seems like it's just late. It gets there just too late because it's coming from so far back. I just think as far as applying pressure, they need to go back to 4 down linemen where they have them or not. I just see that too much. The pressure is more so from the outside, and a lot of times it just doesn't get there in time. The ball's already released. So I'd like to see more pressure up front, and you see more sacks. You see more pressure on the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree.
They run. The run defense hasn't been as good under a 3-4. As far up the middle for Nebraska. Out wide, it's been great. The linebackers been able to get there, good speed, good instincts. But up the middle, Nebraska has struggled for too many years now. We can just run directly right at them. So they do need to change the scheme, in my opinion.
Yeah, well,
just basic runs up the middle, just going for excess yards.
Sure,
it's too often.
Sure,
we have to change something. So I would focus on just having.
That was always the concern back in the old Big 8 when Nebraska was running a 5-2, which is basically a 3-4 with two stand-up linebackers on the ends of the line. Back then, that's what Nebraska used to run. And then we get into a bowl game, and we get against these one-back offenses with a quarterback half the time lining up in the shotgun, and we didn't have enough speed on the field to deal with those offenses. So when Nebraska started working toward doing the 4-3, Charlie McBride and Osborne went to Florida State and hung out with Bobby Bowden for a couple days and said, "What the heck is it you guys are doing on defense?" And God bless them, they showed them what they were doing and what Nebraska virtually ended up doing at the time. Might not work today because nobody plays football in a phone booth, so to speak, as they say. It's mostly spread offenses these days, with the exception of like Iowa and Wisconsin, at least in the Big Ten. But what they essentially did then was they took what used to be defensive ends in an old 5-2, and they just moved them inside and made them two defensive tackles. And then they brought outside linebackers, bulked them up by about 10, 15 pounds, and made them rush ends. They weren't considered defensive ends. They were considered rush ends. Their whole point was to meet at the quarterback, especially on third down. So, yeah, I think you could see an iteration of that this year. I think you're right. I think you could stop the run with a little bit more beef in the middle of the line. Like, for example, if Hutmacher can hold his own and make sure that an offensive lineman doesn't move him any direction, and Ty Robinson, we know
Right.
he can do that, then yeah, maybe Braylon Allen's not going to get that 200-yard dang game against us this year like every Wisconsin running back has done since Frost has been here. And to be fair, Iowa only was good at running the football toward the end of that game because Damian Daniels was out with an injury. So they basically wore down the number 2 dudes that didn't have a lot of time in at that point. So I think a 3-4 does work to stop the run. You just have to have the right personnel. And I'm not sure if just Ty Robinson, Colton Feast may be the right guy, because that is a freaking mountain. That dude is huge, but he was so tired after 2 or 3 plays that he was running off the field. So
I just would like to see an emphasis where the pressure isn't coming from outside, because that's what we've had. We've had a lot of pressure coming from the outside linebackers. It's helped against the run on the outside, but it just hasn't helped as far as pressuring the quarterback and getting sacks.
right.
So I'd like to see just more of a focal point, just plugging the gaps in the center on the line, and then just bringing pressure from there. I think it would be more effective against the run, and they would be able to pressure the quarterback a lot more effectively. Because those outside pressures, as far as getting the quarterback, especially on 3rd and longs, on non-predictable run plays, it's just too late. By the time they're almost there, the ball is already released. It's hurt the team a lot as far as getting off the field. That's why they struggle to get off the field at times. Some games, they can't get off the field in 3rd down. They give up long drives. And I think that's the key issue. Gotta switch it up.
Well, back in the day when Nebraska was so good at pressuring the quarterback, back in the 90s, you had 2 rush ends that could get the quarterback at 3rd down. They didn't have to bring a 5th rusher. You could get that pressure from outside. And Christian and Jason Peter were so good at blowing up the inside of the line that sometimes you got there with those guys too. And occasionally they'd bring a blitz. But when they did, it was usually somebody on the line was also dropping back a little bit, and it would confuse the quarterback, which in essence was what the 3-4 was kind of designed to do. It looked like a 3-man front, but there was always 4 dudes. One was just standing up, and you didn't know which one was rushing the passer. But like you said, it's been way too many people from the outside have come in to try to rush. More than often, at least since Riley's been here and Frost, when we tried to bring pressure up the middle with some of the middle backers, it seemed like they'd get caught up in the mass of humanity and they couldn't get through. So finding those dudes that can penetrate in the middle as well as stop the run and not overrun a running play like a draw would be huge. But I think most of your pressure is really going to need to come from that rush end / defensive outside linebacker spot, which is, the specialty of somebody like an O'Shawn Mathis and even Garrett Nelson at this point.
That's what they're trying to sign Mathis for. We need the next Randy Gregory.
Yep.
Lacking that for too many years.
No doubt that dude was special. No doubt about it. Well, bud, I think we've beat this horse half to death tonight. Hour and a half almost. We thought we'd be lucky to get to a half hour, right? So we did like 10 minutes of baseball, and then it's been nothing but football. So, but that's kind of that's the sport that pays the bills. So anyway, Gio, dude, this was fun. Thanks for doing this with me tonight, and I will certainly work on getting this edited a little bit, put the video up as is, and then maybe add a little bit of a video or something at the beginning and at the end, and then throughout the podcast too. So thanks, man. This was a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Thanks. Have a good one.
All right. You too.
Thanks for having me.